Welcome to Tractor Roy. My name is Trent. On today's agenda, I have a flat on the baler I gotta fix, get the baler drug over to my house, put away for winter, and then get the brush hog put away.
So this is my New Holland 278 baler. It was my main baler for, I don't know, this was a few years ago I guess, but I ended up breaking a bunch of stuff on it and the other baler is in a little better shape. So I started robbing parts off of this one to put on that. And then this last spring decided I wanted to get this thing fixed up. So I got, replacement needles. I had to get a new plunger knife. Had to get some stuff for the knotters, but it still has some issues that I got to work out, and I just never had time to go through it, or to bale when I had time to kind of go through it and fine tune the knotters. So it sat here most of the summer, and I just got to move it back to my house before winter comes and we have a bunch of snow everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and air this thing up. So this tire's flat enough that it knocked the tire off the bead, I think right here and on the back side. So I'm going to jack it up a little bit, try and get the weight off of it, and it should expand out enough that it should be close enough to get the bead to seat with that, without having to take the tire off and do it in the shop. This is a conventional baler. I think conventional is the right way, or offset. So it doesn't sit in line with the tractor. The tractor's right here and the baler pulls off behind. So you drive next to the windrow. The other type is in line, where it's straight behind the tractor and you just straddle the windrow with the tractor. With these, since it's an offset, all of the weight is on the plunger side of the baler. There's hardly any weight, I mean there is weight over here, but not anywhere near as much as that other tire. So it shouldn't be a big deal to jack this up to get it off the ground, because all the weight's going to be on that side anyways. Look at that, the tire's not flat on the bottom anymore, it's just flat on the top. Oh, I don't know. This thing looks a little rough. Might have to drag the air compressor out here instead of a little cordless inflator. Okay, got the compressor drug all the way out here. Get it set up. Oh, we'll see if we can do it with just the air chuck on the Schrader valve. Hopefully we don't have to pull that core and try and get more air in there to seat it. We'll see what happens though. Maybe we got it. That easy. So those cordless inflators are super nice for if the tire's low, but they don't put out enough volume fast enough for if they kind of pop off the bead like this. I forgot, this is definitely the parts baler. This year when I was baling, I ended up losing this is the wheel that the pickup floats. So there's a wheel that goes right here, and this pickup will move up and down, so that wheel rides on the ground. So you have those feeder tines the right distance off the ground. That way you're not digging into the grass and picking up a lot of dirt, and then you're not too high that you miss a bunch of the hay on the ground. So on my other baler that I usually use, I lost that somewhere, and I retraced my steps back and forth on every single windrow trying to find this thing, and I have no idea what happened to it. So I had to rob it off this one. So that's another thing on the list of this baler that I need to fix. But I'm probably just going to take like one of those wheelbarrow tires or something and get one that fits right, because those wheels are actually kind of expensive for what they are, for just being a solid piece of rubber, and they're like that big.
Okay, so now that the baler will roll instead of just drag on the ground, we got to have something to pull it with. And I think we're going to try out this tractor. It's a 1959, I believe, D17, Allis Chalmers. This one's fairly new acquired. I think we got it in like September. This one's my father-in-law specifically. He rewired it, put new gauges on it, put some new LED headlights on it, and really and a new battery, but really this thing hasn't been used other than like to drive over to my place and back to see how it worked. We haven't pulled anything with it or hooked it up to the mower or baler or anything. Part of what we did when we were going through that is I built a 3-point hitch. We got to see how it works. It's a little flimsy, so we might have to come up with some sort of stabilizer arms. All we did was just take a drawbar back here, weld a little bracket so we could bolt through a hole that was already existing in the drawbar, and then take off the snap couplers, add in these 3-point adjusting links, stick on these lift arms, and it should be okay. The top link bracket was already on here, so hopefully that works. Don't have to do anything with it. At some point, somebody added 2 drawbars on here. They doubled it up. So it was actually, they doubled it up and then they welded a plate on here. And it was too thick so that tongue on the baler wouldn't slip over this thing. So I tried hooking the baler up to this thing so we could use it, but it was too thick. So we had to grind this down. So in addition to testing that by taking the baler back over to my house for the winter, we're also going to hook it up to the brush hog to see how this works. If we got too much slop, and to make sure that we can lift these high enough, make sure all the geometry, everything works okay, and see if the PTO works. Because we've tested it just sitting here idling, but we haven't put a load up to it. Except before I forget, we do need to grab a drawbar pin from Baby Blue. We went through and cleaned out those toolboxes and stuff on that tractor. Didn't have anything inside of it. And here we got one. Okay, set you guys up and show you how this thing starts. This thing's relatively simple. We just have a fuel sediment bowl right here. Make sure that's on, and it is. We started this thing last night, so it should be okay, but it has been cold. I think it was maybe 5 degrees last night, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, so this doesn't have glow plugs or anything, so it might be interesting. This is the fuel shutoff. This is to stop fuel going to the injection pump. This is to let fuel go. So this is, you move it to here to start and run it, and to shut it off, you just push it forward like that. That's all on this side. And then we need our starting can for this thing. Since it doesn't have glow plugs or a grid heater, this thing does not like to start when it's cold. Really doesn't even like to start when it's warm outside. So hopefully we can just do a little adjusting in the injection pump and help it out a little bit. It looks like this was a reman one that got put on right before he got it. But since it's cold out, we gotta give it a little snorty ether. Yeah, it's grumpy today. You don't ever have to worry about mosquitoes with this thing. And if you're a beekeeper, it's handy because you don't have to have a little smoker. All you have to do is drive this thing fast. Ah, it's right there. Once it warms up, it runs great, and it starts great after it's warm, but that first start of the day, holy cow. And I guess the other bad thing is we keep this inside the shop because it just kind of went through it. I want to keep it nice for a little bit. It fills this thing up with smoke by the time you can get it started and pull it out of here. Again, no glow plugs, no grid heater. We don't have to worry about putting too much ether in there. It's not going to pop the head gasket because it explodes in the cylinders because there's no heat to this thing right now. We do have a coolant heater, but yeah, we weren't really planning on using this today. So we didn't plug it in. Man. I guess really the smart thing would probably be to shut the fuel off and just crank it and let that compression of the air without fuel warm up the cylinders for a little bit. That might actually be how you're supposed to start this thing. And as you can tell, this one doesn't have a pony motor or anything, like the John Deere's and old Cats, those first original diesels for, well, John Deere specifically, like the R70, 80, 720, and 820. I might have switched to electric after that. They had a pony motor, so they had a gas engine that you would start. And then once that was warmed up, the John Deere's were cool because the coolant that the pony motor had was shared with the main engine. So you just ran that pony motor, and it cycled that water pump and got all that coolant warming up through the whole engine, the main engine and the pony. So then that made it nice because the engine's warm when you go to start it, and it obviously starts easier. And then you use the pony motor to crank the big engine over. And you do like what I was trying to do a second ago and shut fuel off to the main engine, and you just let that pony run it and run it and run it, and then that compression starts heating up those cylinders, and then you add a little bit of fuel, and then the cylinders are warm enough that the fuel ignites easier. This obviously isn't like that. This is just a electric start diesel tractor, so it's kind of doesn't like winter. Farmers also have that gas over diesel configuration, So you'd start it on gas and you'd let it warm up, and then when you switched to diesel, you would just push this lever and it would close the third valve. So when you were starting it on gas, that valve was open, the spark plug was inside the chamber for that valve, and then your compression ratio would be low enough that the exhaust or the gas wouldn't detonate in the cylinder, because diesel compression is higher than gas. So with that valve open, it would expand the chamber, the spark plug would be up there, so then you could run on gas that way. When you switch it over to diesel, it closes that third valve, raises the compression ratio of that cylinder, and then you can run on diesel. So those are kind of cool ways of doing it. They take a lot of maintenance to make sure everything's running right, but then you kind of don't have this issue. Like, it gets to -40 here, and I don't think this little thing will get used once it gets that cold. We'll have to stick with gas tractors if we need anything. We could plug this in, but we have plenty of other gas ones we can use instead.
So this is the starter on this tractor. One of the things we got to keep in mind with this is starters aren't meant to be ran continuously, only for short bursts. So you have all the resistance from having to turn this engine over, and especially with it being diesel, it's a higher compression ratio than a gas. So it takes more effort for that starter to crank this engine than it would be a gas engine. Because of that, these things will start to heat up. It's just a bunch of insulated wires that are wound around and around and around to create a magnetic field when there's power going through it. So you can get those wires hot enough because of all the resistance of trying to crank this thing over that you can start melting the insulation. You can burn up your starter. So it's a good idea you can run it for 20, 30 seconds at a time, but then it's a good idea to let it cool down before you really start cranking on it again. So I was looking all over on this thing because I thought he said he put a coolant heater in here, one that you plug in, or a block heater, but I'm not seeing it. If it was a coolant heater, it would have been put in somewhere on this pipe, and then it warms it up, and then it also has a little pump that circulates the coolant in there, or I guess it could have been right here too. But this one I'm not seeing, so I think it was actually on a different tractor that he just put one on. So my bad. Well, I feel bad. I wasn't filming, and I went to go start this thing up, and after letting it sit for a little bit, fired up no problem.
So that's all for this video. Every time I look at this, I notice we don't have this panel, the hood panel on. It's actually sitting right over there. We do have it. Just after working with the battery and stuff, it was taken off. We had to deal with replacing fuel filters and having some issues with some leaks, so it was easier to leave it off. We do have it. It bugs me it's not on here. So that's all I got for the video. I'm glad we were able to get that out because the snow should be coming in a couple of days, so I think it was just in time. So thanks for stopping by, and I hope you come around next time.